Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this session of the Tampa Account Engagement slash Pardot Community Group. Um, this is the first of what's going to be a handful of sessions that I'm doing that are um, specifically more like, I don't know, let's just kind of build stuff together. Let's just kind of look and I'm going to walk you through some stuff, and if there's interest, then cool, then let's kind of keep doing it. So this is the first. There's three that I'm planning that I'll talk about later. But this first one is about scoring and grading inside of account engagement, also known as Pardot. Um, I mentioned at the top, and I'll just kind of mention again because people have joined since, that um, there was a pretty decent amount of interest in this event, so uh, I decided to extend it by 30 minutes. So now we're going to go from 1:30 p.m. Eastern to 3 Eastern. If we don't need all the time, then we won't take it. But I just wanted to give people time to ask questions. For those who are unfamiliar with the system here, everyone is on mute currently. Yes, Brittany, this is being recorded. I'm recording this now, so I'm going to post it to YouTube, and then it'll be on both the event recording and also on the event page, and also on I'm going to put it up on the Pardot Geeks blog, pardotgeeks.com. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat. If I'm not able to get to it in that moment, I will try to come back to it either at like a little break or at the end. So a little bit about myself. My name is Ben Lamoth. I am a Salesforce MVP, part of the Marketing Champions program, and then I also run this community group, which has been going on for 3-ish years, almost maybe 4, pretty close to 4. Might even be 4 now at this point. The Dreamforce in 21, maybe 21, 22. I was given the golden hoodie, which was pretty cool, and have almost no opportunity to wear it because it's a very loud, very shiny jacket. So it's basically Salesforce events, or it's in my my closet. But it's pretty cool. It's kind of a neat thing to have, and you get that just by being super engaged and kind of going above and beyond for the community, and that's what I've been trying to do since the beginning. So I am yeah, Shelby. I've thought about it. I might. I've looked into it. That may become a thing to shadow box it. But yeah, I'm a senior solutions architect with BDO Digital, which is a Salesforce partner. I've been with them for 3 years now, and I am one of the leads on our Salesforce marketing technology practice, alongside just supporting the larger Salesforce practice development. As just kind of a shameless plug, if you would like to work together at some point, feel free to reach out. I do a lot of client work with BDO Digital, and you can hit me up either on LinkedIn or via email. I'll put my email in the chat as well. So without further ado, today we're here to talk about scoring and grading. And I'm not a huge fan of slideware or decks or whatever you want to call them, especially not when this is more of a tactical conversation, more of a how do you do it, not a what is it. I will go over a bit about scoring and grading, what it is at a high level, but I don't really see that there's a lot of value in just having a slide or two, just what is it. I just want kind of the raw recording to share. Hey, Rich, great to see you again. So yeah, scoring and grading, as you guys know by being on part of this and probably in the Pardot Salesforce ecosystem, scoring and grading is a native function of account engagement. It is something that Marketing Cloud does not do out of the box. It can be made to do it, not terribly cleanly. It's definitely there's definitely a level of effort to get it to do it, but it doesn't really do it in the way that Pardot is meant to do it. And I'm not saying that the way that Pardot does it is perfect. Certainly is areas to improve on it, but it does at least offer a functionality that should be considered scoring and grading. So what is scoring and grading? Scoring and grading at its core is designed to help make sense of how valuable or how ready a prospect in Pardot is for being put in front of sales or put into a queue to be routed to somebody to have a conversation. And Pardot, as I've said before, and I've mentioned in different scenarios, different events, and that and this might be a hot take, or people will certainly disagree with me, but Pardot at its core is marketing automation in service of sales. It's what makes it. It's a distinguishing characteristic when you compare it to like Marketo or HubSpot or Eloqua. It is ultimately designed to help get leads to become qualified, to get them in front of sales, to align them to opportunities to become revenue. That is the top line goal and objective of account engagement, also known as Pardot. Certainly, marketers are the power users of it. People get frustrated sometimes because Pardot can't do all the things that Eloqua and Marketo can do as cleanly. Pardot is definitely a much more rigid platform. It doesn't allow for a lot of kind of hacking and modifying and customization in that way, because Pardot is marketing automation for a Salesforce that lives in Salesforce, like full stop. That's kind of the designed objective. And so, knowing that, we should look at what is scoring and what is grading. So this is a dev org that has some pre-populated data in it, and there are a bunch of test records in here. And what you'll see here is you have the names, the company, and score. So let me look at one of these records. I'm going to open a couple records here. So a score in Pardot is distinctive from a grade. So a score is assigning value to somebody's engagement and consumption of marketing assets and resources and efforts. So when someone does something, they download an asset or PDF, they fill out a form, they complete a landing page, they click an email, they open an email, all of these things, those are all scoreable actions. And kind of as an aside, we'll also look at the other piece of scoring, but on what the actual foundations of scoring. But just for the sake of conversation, we're at this prospect, Rose Gonzalez, and we have prospect activity. We've got form completion, success, score 50. This is giving this prospect all these activities. If I were to open them all up here, it would give me a bunch of activities that are giving this prospect a score of 1,050 points. This is an action that is being given a value, being given a score. So they fill a form out, they get 50 points. Let's look at the actual pieces of that. So when we go to automation settings and then the scoring, what we see here are scoring rules. Let's ignore scoring categories. That's actually another meeting that I'm doing in a little while to go deep on scoring categories. Let's just look at the scoring rules. Pardot has out-of-the-box scoring rules that cannot be added to in this view. Like, I'm not able to add additional criteria here freely, but I can modify the value. So these are the things that Pardot has identified as being scoring rules that are action that they would consider out of the box marketing activities. A custom redirect click, email opens, file access and error. So someone errors out of their form. you reduce their points. There are things here that are positive and that are negative. So they did a thing, 3 points. They failed to do a thing, reduce points, because there's inference that -5 points means that they didn't fill the form out correctly, which means that the information that they tried to put in the first time was not accepted. So maybe they tried to use a free email address, or they didn't select the right required fields. And so because of that, that makes them, the probability of them being a qualified lead, that is potentially lower. So all of these things here are, these are all marketing pieces. There are some things that are sales centric. So opportunity created, opportunity lost, opportunity won. So in addition to the marketing pieces of this, the marketing actions, there's also how valuable are they in terms of their engagement with sales? Did they get associated to a opportunity? 50 points. But did that opportunity not close? Was it a close lost? Then they lose 100 points. But if they won, it's 0 points. This is just the default. You can obviously even change this. But these are all of the things that are running in the background on every prospect whenever something happens with them. Whenever you send them an email or drive them to a landing page, or use if you're using a social media piece, if you are running the webinars, if you've got visitor data that you're able to leverage, these are all things that are accumulating on the prospect, which is what we see here. So in this case, form, the standard form, is 50 points here. Form handler submission. This is a form handler? No, standard form. So standard form submission, which is a standard, a standard Pardot form, is going to get, they're going to gain 50 points. So when you are creating your scoring, before you even what I recommend to people is, who are looking to implement scoring, is the very first step in all this is, what are you scoring for? Is there a threshold? Is scoring being created to generate better quality leads? Is scoring being implemented because you need to know more about how engaged somebody is in the material that you're providing and producing? Having a clear definition of what the score is meant to do will inform the scoring rules that you create here and the value that you assign to things. I have seen clients who have said, this does not help me at all. I don't want to use any of this. This doesn't make any sense to me. I'm going to zero this all out and create my own scoring rules that I go it alone on. But I create the criteria. I build all the automations to ultimately to do this. That is not the common use case, I would say. More often than not, there's a modification of the scoring rules. So scoring, just to kind of reset, scoring is value assigned to marketing activities. It has nothing to do with the firmographic value, the firmographic match of somebody. We're gonna get into that in a little bit. The scoring is, did they do a thing? If they did a thing, give them points for that. So if you sent them an email and they clicked an email, I don't think that's actually in here. So unless it's a custom redirect, but generally speaking, email open gets 0 points because it's an open. It's not. It's a soft metric that has very kind of minimal value. But things around downloading a PDF, so accessing a file, submitting a form, those are kind of more kind of high, as clear indicators. They took the time to stop and input their information and give it to you. So that is something that has a higher value point. So a form submission, form handler submission, landing page success, opportunity created. These are the ones that are these are the kind of the high dollar, the high point value generators here. let me go back to what I was saying before about how when you have a scoring plan, you need to be able to figure out what is the scoring for. So I mentioned before that you can make changes to scoring rules. So these are all of the out-of-the-box scoring rules. If I were to decide that in my specific model, I produce a lot of, like, let's say company X produces a lot of PDFs. And in the industry that I'm in, there is a heavier reliance on PDFs and ebooks as in terms of the education of that prospect in them learning more about the products and being interested in and then being interested in what it is that you're doing and the potential of becoming a customer. So I might want to say this is actually a very valuable activity, and I would give it 10 points. Note that when I change the scoring rule here, file access, to 10 points, this is going to retroactively affect these two prospects. So what was previously 3 points is now 10 points. So when I save the changes, it's then going to revise up the score for those prospects because that file access that those two prospects had done, instead of being worth 3 points, are now worth 10 points. So you'll notice this up here. It says changing scoring rules is significant. Review the documentation, and then particularly if you have connected CRM and automation rules based around scoring before making changes. Because if you affect a score here, and then suddenly they become that score has a significant change, a significant impact on automations, then that's going to trigger other automations to run, which could have significantly impactful downstream impacts. So just bear that in mind. You can add more changes here. Let's say like your PDFs are super important and your landing pages, you use a lot of landing pages. So 50 points is fine. Let's say maybe it needs to be 60. Whatever your threshold is, what the scoring has to mean something or should mean something. So when I say mean something, I mean typically in concert with grading. If you're looking at it in terms of a qualification engine, is the score together with the grade meant to do something? So if I have a high watermark, let's say of 75 points, is considered somebody who has engaged, who is considered valuable, then everything around that should be then your scoring rules should be crafted to resonate with that 75 points. That's basically it. Is whatever that number is, whatever that high number is, that is engaged value, craft your scoring values around that. That's my recommendation. So it could be that 75 points doesn't for you. Maybe actually it needs to be more because maybe there's a lot of there needs to be a lot more asset consumption, a lot more webinars and emails and things like that before sales feels like they're ready to. Maybe your threshold is 500 points. Figure out what that number is, and then develop your scoring criteria around that. There's a question about needing to use custom actions and configure scoring rules accordingly as completion actions. That's correct. So in addition to, this is what you're seeing here is the stuff that's happening behind the scenes automatically. Whatever you set this number as, if you say everything else is fine, but these two need to be more or less than what the default is, I'm not going to save it, but you would say, okay, cool. These scoring rules are now running with the exception of the change that you made. And now you need to say, okay, well, this is cool, but I have a specific asset of mine that And I've had clients do this where they've said, I've got let's say I've got this demo form that is, we have found to be a driver. Like whenever someone takes time to fill this out, the indicator has been that there is a greater than a 50% chance that they're going to be associated to an opportunity. So we want to effectively fast track these people. There is a way to do that by adding additional scoring onto these forms. So this is a form here. You see that I was just called standard form. You go into the completion action and you say, all right, and you can even use conditional and say, whoever filled this form out, if they are, let's say using one of the fields in your form. Let's look at the fields in the form. This is how you would probably want to use this, so it doesn't go crazy. So you're able to be a little more selective. So if somebody, let's say, fills this form out and their job title contains the word director, let's say, then I can go here and adjust score by 10 additional points. So let's probably spell director right. So above and beyond the 50, if someone fills this form out and sales was found that whatever the values are, let's just say director in this case, that if someone were to fill the form out and their job title contains the word director, all of those things together makes them an inherently higher value to sales when it comes to converting. So I want to give them more. Let's just say in this case, they're already going to get 50. This is not in lieu of. This is in addition to. So they're going to get 50, and then I'm going to give them an additional 10 points because this is a particularly high value asset. So you can go over. You can go in addition to all you want to kind of hone in on these additionally valuable assets. These assets that have shown to produce MQLs who become related opportunities, who become closed won. So a certain amount of this is going to require you having conversations with sales. So if you were to say, like, help me understand who is our ICP or our ideal customer profile. Two questions asked the same thing. No. So if I add a completion action on this, then no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to go retroactively. So that's a great question. So if I were to when I add this completion action and I'm now focusing on the word director, it is only from that point forward that it's going to trigger on director and give them 10 more points. You can, if you were to want it for it to be retroactive, you could build an automation rule, which sure, we'll do that. Let's do that now. Well, while we're thinking about it. Well, yeah. Let's talk through what that would look like. But just to kind of put a pin in this here, if this is a high value asset, and I need to make sure, and I've decided that this is a even more important form because it's shown to produce MQLs. Let's say I've got 30 forms, and there's these 3 that do really well, that are shown to the people who fill this out, who have director in their title when they fill it out, are more likely than not to be qualified and should be given this fast track of additional points to MQL them if they don't exist already, let's say. All right, so let's kind of answer that question of if I were to want to, knowing that this is not retroactive, this is something that's just going to be from now on. But if you were to say, all right, I want to also go and look back, there's a couple things. So if you were to, okay, so let's talk through a couple different ways to approach that. If you were to say, I would like this to happen for all prospects who have filled this form out already. So I don't have anybody here. Let's find somebody who has filled out a form. Seriously, where are my prospects who have filled stuff out? Okay, Rose allegedly have filled this out. Okay, cool. So I've got all these prospects in standard form who I now want to go, and this is a valuable form that I need to be increasing the score of when be increasing above 50 for this specific form. But I also want this to affect everyone who has historically filled this form out. You have two options. You can either create an automation rule, or you can create or you can complete a single action. So my recommendation is going to be to create a segmentation rule. And the reason why I'm suggesting that is because if you were to create an automation rule for this, what's going to happen is you say, okay, anyone who filled this form out, I want to give them 10 points. That's going to run in conjunction with the form that's already giving them 10 additional points. So what you'll be doing is you'd be adding 10 via a completion action and then 10 via an automation rule. So you'd be going from standard 50 to 60 to 70 using three different methods, which is unnecessary. So what you're going to want to do is, if you want to say this form, I want to make everyone who has done this previously, I want to run them through a single retroactive score upgrade of 10 points. And you're going to do this using a segmentation rule. You're going to have two options. Either select them all, everyone who's done it historically, and tag them, or add them to a list. Once you've added them to a list or tagged them, the next step is going to be to create a segmentation rule. A segmentation rule will allow us to say anybody who is, let's say, has that tag, the tag that you set. Oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting. I figured I could totally do this as a one-off. Jen, you're exactly right. You could also just run it as an automation rule and not even worry about the completion action. And for some reason, I thought I could adjust the score in a segmentation rule, but I guess I can't. You learn things every day, things that you assume that you can't do. So yeah, in this case, segmentation rule would actually not work. So a segmentation rule would work in a select number of scenarios. You see, there's exactly 6 things you can do here. But you're exactly right, Jen. So if you did not want to use a form, if you say, if it doesn't make sense to use a form, and you want to affect everyone both retroactively and moving forward, then as Jen correctly pointed out, it would make sense to run this as an automation rule, where you would say anybody who has filled this form out, and you can add that criteria. So anybody who has filled out, let's say this one, and their default field title contains director, adjust their score. I always lose the score, adjust prospect score by 10 points. So there's 2 ways to do it. If you need it to be retroactive and moving forward, automation rule is the way to go. If you're only wanting it from that point forward, then a completion action on the form is the way to go. That's kind of the rule. And thanks, Jen, for pointing that out. And I thought I could do that by a segmentation rule. I always forget there's like 6 things you can do in there. And that's it. And that's not one of them. Yep. Thanks, Ashley, for joining. Thanks, Jen, for joining as well. Right. So the scoring and the scoring piece of this should never be confused with the grading piece. I've seen companies organizations that will, segmentation rules only trigger on 3 things in account engagement: lists, campaigns, and tags. Helpful for anyone trying to memorize studying for a cert. Exactly. Thank you, Allie. List, campaigns, and tags. And then there's a question, what are some actions different and not accessible? Why are some actions different and not accessible? So that's a frustration that I've experienced. Why it's like you can't do certain things in certain automations, and I don't really have a good explanation. I mean, if Ali wants to join to kind of chime in on why it is that way, I'm not totally sure why it is that way. That it's that you can only do a handful of things in the segmentation rule. The segmentation rule, for those unfamiliar, is a singular action that is not recurring. So an automation rule is continually going to query the database and trigger whenever someone meets the criteria. A segmentation rule is going to run one time. It can be rerun, but you have to manually rerun it. So it's segmentation rules have value, yeah, because Salesforce. Yeah, exactly. A lot of these tools have not been changed, meaningfully changed in 10 years, maybe longer. I mean, they certainly didn't change it when they put it into when they implemented the Lightning app and made that the main one. That didn't change anything. It just changed the UI, really. But the actual function of them didn't really change. Yeah, Jen, you're probably right. They probably will get rid of segmentation rules and just use. Yes, Justin, that is also correct. They will always find a way to make you pay for something. So automation rule is going to be a good option if you need to retroactively and move and forward facing make enhancements to increase the score of these people. Just as an aside, automation rules, it is very easy to create an automation rule and then forget about it. I've seen numerous orgs where they've got 150 automation rules that are all active. Pardot or accounting agent will send you emails to notify you if it hasn't been run in 30 days, if it hasn't processed in 30 days. My performance be increased if I use Classic and Lightning versions at the same time? I mean, no, not really. If you're using them both, I mean, there's certain things that are easier to do, like opening things in multiple tabs is easier to do in the version, but there's really not a meaningful change, meaningful difference. All right, so settings and look at scoring again here. So we have scoring rules, and I mentioned before that you can enhance above and beyond these categories. You can say, all right, I've got score, I've got these. You can create your own if you want. If you want to say, did this and this, like you can kind of daisy chain them together. If you want to create an automation rule that is a kind of super catch, like it's like a super rule that has a bunch of different actions tied together, where if it's part of a specific campaign or it's part of a specific initiative, they downloaded this PDF and filled out this form and did this thing. Those things together might be worth 150 points or whatever. Just throwing that out there. You do have the ability to obviously to amend, to kind of improve, and to just fully ignore the scoring rules if you want to just zero them out. You are definitely allowed to do that. The one thing that I will say about scoring that is just my own personal thing is it drives me a little bit crazy when I see scores that are like 1,050 or something like that, because it tells me that the scoring probably doesn't actually mean anything. Now, this is also kind of a default Pardot thing. Pardot will just turn on, it just runs. So if it's not part of what your actual efforts to do anything in Pardot, you probably don't even see the score. It's there, but you don't use it, and it doesn't matter to you. And then one day, someone will ask, why does this prospect have 5,000 points? What does that even mean? It's like, well, I don't know. It doesn't mean anything. So kind of going back to what I said at the top is make your scores mean something. Even if they don't necessarily mean something, you can implement mechanisms to keep them in check. So something as easy as creating an automation rule to revise down your That's what engagement is. So creating an audible to revise down a score. So if someone's score, if you were to say like the top line of my score is 100. So if someone comes in with a score greater than 99, change it. So Justin, that's exactly what I'm about to say. So if you were to want to change their prospect score, then, and let's say they're over 99, then I can never find the score. Adjust prospect score, you get two options, by or to. So then if I were to say, if it's greater than 99, or let's say it's greater than 100, let's say that's even better. If it's greater than 100, revise their score back to 100. This is going to enable you to ensure that your that in the future, let's say you decide one day to do something with scoring, you can have you can keep a top line that's running in the background that you never really have to do anything with. It's just always running. You can also do the opposite. Is less than 0, because it is very possible to have prospects that end up having negative 5,000 points, which is meaningless. So if they have a score that's less than 0, adjust their score to 0. This allows you to keep a top line and a bottom line, your scores that maybe today you don't necessarily need scoring, but in the future, you may find this to be helpful, because you're going to be emailing people, and people are going to be doing things that can be scored on that are for years and years and years. And one day you may decide that you guys now need to use scoring. Having something that just running in the background is not going to hurt. Yes, good point. Ali said, make sure that they're only set to that they're set to repeat. That's a good point. I forgot to point that out. So automation rules will only run one time on somebody unless you allow them to repeat it. So that is an excellent point that I forgot to point out. But because this is a dev org, I can't click that. Otherwise, I would be able to, but I can't change it. So if you are running this and you need to reset them to 0, make sure that they are allowed to repeat it. Because otherwise, as Ali pointed out, it will just run. They will have less than 0 one time, and then next thing you know, they're negative 200, and you're like, what happened? I thought I created this rule. Because you have to allow them to repeat it. Otherwise, they will keep running over and over and over again, increasing that score. There's a question about you face, as a consultant, you face overscored instance. It means I have clients asking to reverse, I think it's reverse, their scoring system. When I create dynamic rules, I see 5,000 members whose scores are greater than 200. Do I need to decrease their value? I would probably break those up a bit. I would try to understand beyond like 5,000 members who have greater than 100, like understand who they are, add some additional criteria. Are they current customers? How long have they lived in the org? Just get a sense for who they are. And also if they have a score that means something, if 200 is their threshold, then reset everybody to 200. I mean, that's basically what I would do if they have a threshold established. If they don't, have that threshold conversation with them. What should be the top line? And then say, okay, we don't think that anyone should have a score greater than 200. Then just revise everyone down to 200. But that's again going to be dependent upon how it is that they want to proceed with their scoring and things of that nature. So I've talked a lot about scoring, and scoring is super important because it obviously can tell you about level of interest. That's how it's built. Is a score is a way to quantify a prospect's level of interest in you or the products. It's an imperfect science, and making kind of somewhat heavy-handed assumptions about somebody based on how many emails they opened or how many links they clicked or PDFs that they downloaded. But the idea is ultimately to give sales warm leads. Warm lead is going to be somebody who has shown interest by way of marketing, by way of engaging with marketing material. That's the first piece we've been talking about, and that's going to be the score. So if they have shown interest in the material that you've been sending them via email, the PDFs, webinars, whatever, and they meet whatever the firmographic criteria is that has been identified by sales and others as what's known as an ICP. And I realize that's very basic, and there's more creative ways of looking at it. But at its core, it's what are these groupings of people? What is it about them that, should they meet the criteria that you outlined, which I'm just about to go through, what is it about them that makes them valuable, that would make them a more perceived as being more apt to be a good prospect, somebody whose sales would have a higher probability of potentially selling to? That's really the entire point of the scoring and grading together, is they've shown interest at up to a certain threshold by engaging with material, so they're not cold, and they've also met whatever the minimum criteria is that sales would say, okay, I could probably sell to this person, or there's at least a conversation to be had here. Those are really like the things that most organizations try to look to Pardot scoring and grading to achieve. And there's outliers and there's other scenarios where that doesn't quite fit, but generally that's the idea. So we've been talking about scoring, and scoring obviously is going to be the actions that are taken together with the grade. Before I jump off of scoring, though, there's one thing that I do want to mention that is important. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, and I imagine that others on this call have experience with it. So feel free to chime in if you want to join. If you have something that you'd like to talk about, to say, you're welcome to share your experience. Just let me know, and I'll take you off mute. But the other thing I want to talk about is score degradation. So Pardot has no mechanism to degrade a score over time. And if the purpose of score is to indicate, is basically kind of a sort of a snapshot in time, this person, in addition to their grade is kind of immovable. It's kind of consistent. The more you learn about them, the more likely they are to become meet that ICP, that ideal customer profile. However, their score is a snapshot in time. At that moment, on this day, on Wednesday, they have, is today Wednesday? Today's Wednesday. Yeah. On Wednesday, their score at this time is 75. In the last few days, they downloaded a PDF, they filled out a form, they clicked a couple of custom redirects, and they've met that criteria. And then, let's say 10 days over the course of the next 10 days, or even a month, they do nothing or very little. Should their 75 points still remain? Are they still warm? And that's something that is important to kind of remember, that scoring is a snapshot in time, and over time, if they don't do things there should be two mechanisms: mechanism putting score in the basket, and a mechanism taking score out of the basket. So the mechanism taking the score out of the basket is to create some form of automation that will look for a prospect whose score is, or that don't even actually look at the score itself. Just say if there's some kind of criteria about them, that they have not opened any email in the last 5 days, or has not, I don't know, has not has not completed a landing page. Yeah, that's right. Good point. Let's say if your organization has a lot of files, so I guess has not been active, so not an option. I don't know. Let's say they haven't. Man, it's not. This dev work is killing me. Yeah, prospect time. That's a good point. So any last activity greater than 10 days ago, because that's a good point. Prospect activity is something that allows us to leverage landing page completions, form completions, visits to web pages that have tracking codes on them, things that are more kind of definitive, more actual activities. So if they haven't done anything that would be considered an activity in the last 10 days, remove change their score, adjust prospect score by -10. And then you create a series of cascading ones that says if they haven't been active in 20 days, reduce their score by 20 points. If it's haven't been 30 days, then by 30 points, and so on. So they would, if this mechanism that's going on over a period of time, reducing score based on activity, is taking away the score. But then if they are also doing things like, let's say that they are opening an email, doing whatever, then they will be accumulating points. So the removal of points won't affect them because they continue to be engaged. And Ali just put a link in here that I will. This is something that talks about. This is about the prospect database and cleaning out never active prospects. Link is in the chat. So check it out. But this is something that's super important to and would kind of maybe help Holly with your question your statement of that's how we age prospects in time and that have not opened email in X days. So this is super important. I've done this with a client in the past because they've had prospects that are not engaged, and they want to, and their purpose in the lack of engagement was not necessarily about score, was more about being able to clean their own database, to be able to send prospects to the recycle bin. So it has multiple use cases. This in this particular case for this context is about scoring. So you have activities that are adding people to people's scores, and then you have activities then you have automations behind the scenes that are automatically removing score as they continue to age. And if they're doing that marketing activity, then the aging won't really matter because that snapshot in time will be consistent, and that snapshot in time is kind of important when it comes to the grading piece of it, because I'm going to talk about the grading piece. And the grading is very it's important, but it's arguably probably the most labor intensive, most time intensive piece of this, because it requires, to do it right, in my opinion, and if you have other thoughts, please share them in the chat. In my experience, to do grading well, it's going to require a series of conversations with people in sales. People like your sales ops leader, your rev ops leaders, your people who are account managers, coming together and providing you with a list of characteristics that they have identified as being indicators of a good lead. Firmographic details about them. And so when I say firmographic details, Yeah, exactly, Jen. And they do change their minds, or it definitely is evolutionary. So you're going to want to kind of keep them like have like quarterly check-ins or however often. Like, hey, just check in and make sure the MQ at the the criteria that you told me about is still valid. And say no, never mind. We don't like this job title anymore. So you have to go in and change it. But the way that this the way that you create the scoring, or the grading rather. Can we talk more about the profiling side? So do you mean like the when you say profiling side, do you mean the grading, or are you still talk about the scoring? Grading. Okay, yeah. So that's what we're doing right now. So no worries. So the grading piece of it ultimately comes down to profiles, and I believe all orgs come with a default profile. This is what a profile looks like. Everyone in your org probably is assigned to it. So this is what you see when you want to go and you want to edit a profile. You'll notice that these are not dropdowns. These are the name of the criteria, but they are not dropdowns. They do not align to a field in your org. These are things that are unique to your organization that you can free text in a way that makes sense to you and others. So this says criteria name, company size. Let's create a new one. Let's create something that is, let's create a new profile. So typically a profile, I typically will encourage people, when they think about profiles, think about them in terms of a segment of their customer base, or our people, or an aspect of a kind of a identifying element of a factor with their sales orgs. Yeah, exactly. You can, unlike with scoring, you can change the criteria fields, which is nice. So it's never the same default across all orgs. That's correct. So you can, that is definitely a difference. With scoring, it's all pretty locked in. With grading, you can be kind of creative, which is good and bad, because if you go for a while and people get kind of crazy with it, then it could become a bit of a rat's nest to untangle. But let's say that our profile name here is, let's see, I don't know, let's just say key account, or like let's just call it let's just call it ICP, just for the sake of this. So an ideal, if you've got a pretty narrow ICP, your criteria and the things about this prospect that makes them ideal is their or if the region, let's say it's regional. So region, you can either be very prescriptive or kind of vague. You say region, knowing what the region is that it needs to be. Or you can say region is Northeast. And next, you got to think about, okay, let's say you have a prospect whose region who is in the Northeast region. How important is this to them being considered part of the ICP? There's 3 levels to this. There's a full letter grade, 2/3 of a letter grade, or a third of a letter grade. Everyone starts with and keep me honest, guys, I'm pretty sure everyone starts at a grade of D. I believe that's how it is. And then you're basically going up or down from D. And what this is going to say is, okay, if they're in the Northeast, they're automatically up to a C. Next is revenue, or let's say greater than $1 million a year, or let's say $10 million a year in revenue. I'm being very prescriptive. It's not always like this, just for the sake of this conversation. Let's say they are greater than $10 million in revenue. This makes them, it's important. It's pretty important, but it's not a like deals have been done with smaller companies. and they are, let's see, they are, and title is executive. You can do a few here, say director title. If they're an executive, it's 2/3. If they're a director, it's 1/3. And so on. So you can basically say, okay, now they're in the Northeast, they do better, they do greater than $10 million a year. If they're an executive, it's worth 2/3. If they're a director, it's worth 1/3. And I don't know, they are at least 500 employees. This is a 2/3, because these are all things that we've known about them, that typically this is a organization. And let's do industry. Industry is biotech. Full grade. So let's do biotech ICP. Create profile. So I've got a new profile here called biotech ICP. I've got 20 prospects in here that are all here at default. What I need to do is I need to, of these 20, let's say, I need to now go in and say, all right, I need to create a criteria to pull some of these 20 into the correct ICP for grade. So I need to create, there's a handful of ways to do this. And the way that I'm going to talk about, and if others have any other ways, feel free to mention it in the chat, is to support your grading using your grading using either an automation rule, an engagement studio via import, or did we also say that you could do it in a segmentation rule? I think that's what was said. Maybe I think I'm wrong. Yep, I'm wrong. Okay, they can't do a segmentation rule. So if I create an automation rule looking for people to meet this criteria, both now and I've always used automation rules too. I have seen scenarios where it's like it's very specific and all these criteria have to meet it in order to be put in certain place. People can get kind of crazy about it, but automation rules are more often than not the way to do this. So if you got ultimately the goal here is to assign someone to a specific profile. So always forget where the profile is. Change prospect profile to biotech ICP. So now we need to go and look at a few things with their fields to put people in the ICP and to match them. So you can create scenarios where they don't match. And if they don't match, then I believe it becomes a negative. Jen, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that if it doesn't match, if it doesn't match, then so let's say, like in this scenario, if I were to say industry is education, but everything else matches, or so education isn't biotech. But everything else, employees is 1,000, and default field title is let's see, CTO, and let's do state is let's do Maine. So okay, now we're going to set them to the biotech ICP, And we also now want to change profile criteria. These are all the ones that we just created. So if they're an executive, so matches. And you want to look for other pieces of this. So their default field. So we want to also change the profile criteria again. Biotech ICP. At least 500 employees, matches. Don't have anything, but I don't have anything about the revenue. So let's just say, let's create the revenue here. So default field. I don't think I have revenue as a number in here, is it? Right? Yeah, it's not. It's just the number of employees. So I'd have to go and look at an account field. Let's see if they're associated to an account. And why did I think revenue was on the where? I'm just so confused today. Annual, there it is. That's what it was. I was looking for the wrong starting word. Is, let's say 200. $200 million, let's say. So, and the prospect criteria for biotech ICP greater than 1 million matches. So at least 500 employees matches, executive title matches, greater than 10 million matches. Biotech, I didn't look for that as a criteria. Let's say matches, but let's say that biotech, it isn't biotech. Interesting. For the purposes of let's say that the industry is pharmaceuticals, which could be considered biotech. So if I were to create this, so biotech, what this will do is they will look for anybody who meets these after they run through these criteria. It's going to set them to biotech ICP. It's going to send them matches for executive title, doesn't match for director, but matches for everything else here. This will net out a score change, a grade change, and it will assign people to biotech. So I haven't gone and created a prospect that meets this criteria. What would end up happening is the profile. So if there was a profile, it would be here. But because they are not assigned to one, I will just give her the profile here. Where is the biotech profile? Pretty sure it usually says profile name here. Or does it only do it if there's a grade? Remind me, friends. Well, yeah, for some reason I thought it actually in like had it here. I don't know why I remembered it being here. Yeah, I think you're right, Ali. I think it's only if it shows a grade. So let's just tinker with something real quick. let's say that if I wanted to go in and manually do this, if I don't want to send them through the automation, I can say matches, does not match, does not match, does not match. Pretty basic thumbs up, thumbs down, super high tech. And then knowing all of that, and now this prospect now has there we go. You're right. So actually now once it's gone through a grading, then it gets a grade. So this prospect has a grade of a D+. If I were to change and say that greater than 10 million revenue, D+ goes to B- because of the mechanisms that are happening where we've allocated how valuable that matches to the corresponding grade. So we've got a mechanism in place now, and what we want to do, well, obviously we're gonna need to create automation rules for all of our profiles that we want to create, and you can create many profiles if you want. Biotech, however you want to look at it, biotech, or if you want to do it by, I've seen brands where if you have a series of brands that are part of your that are part of what the company sells. So like, this is the ICP for brand X, this is the ICP for brand Y, and so on. You can also then spread it out across your business units if you've got multiple business units that need to have these. So you create all these profiles, and now you need to use your profiles with your grades and your scores to do something. This is where the automation rules, there's a few different ways to do this. Automation rule, completion action, I think, depending on how you do it. But if you want it to run behind the scenes, let's say biotech MQL process. So here's what we need to do now is we want to, because Pardot cannot reassign, we want to look for somebody who is assignment status is not assigned, because Pardot can't affect change in that way. And profile is biotech, and prospect score is greater than, let's say 75, because that's our threshold there. And we're not talking about scoring categories. Grade. Prospect grade is greater than, let's say, a B. So they have a B, they're in biotech and they have a B, and they're greater than 75 points. All these things together allow us to do a few things. Ultimately, it's whatever your MQL process is. So I've seen a few different where it's just a matter of adding them to a queue. So if there's a queue that you have, you would select the Salesforce queue here, and you would add them automatically to that queue. Or you can assign them to a user. Assign prospect to a specific user that you know is connected. This will send them into Salesforce. Or assign via active assignment rules. So you can add them to a queue, assign them to a user, or assign them via active assignment rules. If you send them via active assignment rules, then it will kind of throw them into Salesforce to be picked up by the current active assignment rules that are running whenever a new record is introduced into the system. But Pardot has done its job of aligning the prospect score, that high level threshold, and the grade for the box CP. All those things together being true, this automation will run every time somebody, and you can either set it to repeat if you want. And there's use cases to do that and to not do that. That's a whole other conversation. But the scoring and the grading together will allow you to move a prospect down into Salesforce and to be assigned to the right person. So sales is able to run down leads that are warm and that meet the minimum threshold of qualification. This will allow sales to run down leads that have a higher probability of closing or becoming associated opportunities and revenue and so on. That is, at a very high level, how scoring and grading is designed to work in Pardot. I've heard people say that the grading piece, they thought it was going to be more, that they were surprised at how manual it is. And I get it. I agree. It is. They were a little taken aback when I've had clients kind of express genuine shock when they said, "Oh, let's just set up grading." Like, okay, well, here's all the things that we have to do. Here's all the things that have to work together and be built in order to support it. So there's a decent amount of upfront work that has to be done, but once it's done, it's great. It works, and all it requires is basically a little bit of hot fixes here and there to kind of change or modify or whatever. But once you set it up, you're gonna be very glad that you did that. Jen, you're exactly right. Nothing is simple. Surprisingly, nothing is simple in Pardot. Despite being pretty rigid and straightforward, it's also kind of complex. So that was really kind of what I wanted to go through here in this, and I appreciate Jen and Allie and others helping me out when I couldn't find stuff, or adding some context, and in Allie's case, sharing that great article that she wrote about database cleanliness. So I know we've got people have obviously we went over, because I said that because there was a lot of interest. I wanted people to have time to if you wanted to ask some questions. Jen, I appreciate that. So I know that we still have about 24 people still in the room. If anyone has a question, I'd be happy to jump back into this, jump back into different pieces of this. There's things that I kind of glossed over that I didn't really go into a lot of detail. Feel free to jump if you put your hand up in the chat or whatever, and I can take you off of mute, or if you just want to put your question there, you can. But the scoring and grading is very important, but it's also can be kind of a pain to set up. So Brittany had a question: how can scoring and grading be used to filter out prospects we are not interested in, such as employees? Same questions for sustainers, donors who already contribute with recurring donations. So that's a great question, Brittany. So you can, like, what I typically recommend is, if you've got employees, the thing that I usually do is I will create a list of everybody who's an employee. So I have an employee list, a master list, and that's usually going to be like somebody, like, using a matching email address, like email address contains @company.com. That's your master list. And then when you are doing your scoring, for example, you can create a automation to automatically zero out anybody who is in the system as an employee and starts accumulating scores. Same thing with grades. So you can create an automation that will reset their scores and also reset their profiles. So if for some reason an employee gets put into a profile, let's say that they're on this list of employees, say, let's call it partners, then change their score and change their profile away from something that is usable for scoring and grading. So if you've got your profiles that you use that have automations that are set up to support that, then I I would set them back to default, assuming that default is not used, and I would reset their score to 0. I hope that helps. How can I offer my client to make profiles? Should I review their product and offer solution, or could I encourage them to do so? So profiles are pretty delicate, and what I typically will ask, what I'll do is I'll tell them that I can't create a profile until you tell me how you group your customers. When sales looks at their customer base, at their people that they work with, is there an internal grouping that happens where if you got like biotech, like I said, example, biotech, education, engineering, are there industries or are there markers that they identify their customers as? And then, I mean, you can kind of ask them, like get them to tell you without realizing that you're asking them that. Basically say, okay, salesperson X, let's say marketing sends you a warm lead. Let's just assume it's always warm for their case, because they're gonna be like, well, what if they're not warm? Let's say they're a warm lead and their industry is knowing something about them, saying that that they will typically sell into automotive companies and engineering companies and whatever. Let's say that marketing sends you a warm lead in the manufacturing space. What are the things that you are looking for that will tell you right off the bat before you pick up the phone whether or not you think that they're going to be a good fit? That would be, and then just kind of take notes on what they tell you, and then say, okay, based on what you said, here is what it sounds like. Here are the firmographic elements of that particular customer group that you think would make, and that are important to be able to know, that you would love to know ahead of time, or that you think that we should use as part of our scoring and grading. Kind of go in and ask them to kind of lead the witness a little bit, ask them the questions about their company and the salespeople, and then get them to tell you what it is that they look for. That'll help you work out what the different profile criteria pieces should be for these different segments of the audience. And don't just talk to one salesperson, talk to a few, see if you can get kind of like a standard like output of, this is the thing that everyone mentioned. These 6 things are something that everyone mentioned. So beyond individual salespeople's kind of preferences, what's kind of a standard set of criteria? Get them to tell you that, and then say, okay, I'm going to create these 3 profiles with all these criteria that will hopefully that should help us get a better sense of a qualified lead in this industry that I can pass to sales, that will make sales' life a little easier. That's how I would do it. Holly, question about scoring plans in higher ed. Yeah, exactly, Jen. And then the next step is, once the grading is set up, follow through, look to see if how accurate the scoring and grading is, see whether or not it actually did what it was intended to do. What's the percentage of these qualified leads that became part of opportunities? If you're seeing like a significant, like, oh yeah, this is generating pretty qualified leads that are being part of opportunities, and that tells you that you're onto something. But if you're seeing the same as without it, then it's not. It needs to be tweaked. Something is off somewhere. Holly had a question. Does anyone know of any good articles or references on creating scoring plans in higher ed by chance? So the education people, I'm trying to think. There is a there's a firm that I'm thinking about off the top of my head that I'm blanking on their name. They're up in the Northeast. You guys might know who I'm referring to. Yeah, there's a group that is up in the Northeast. I'm trying to remember the name of their. There's that, and then Cloud for Good. Also will typically produce a lot of stuff. Off the top of my head, I don't have anything that I can give you that is for higher ed specifically. But that's I would look into Cloud for Good, because they do a lot in the nonprofit space, and I think they also do education. So they might have some stuff. Justin, it's also really good. That's also a very good recommendation is to go to them with information. Say, I've done an export of opportunity contact roles related to closed won opportunities, and here's what the contacts, here's what I'm seeing in the contacts, role wise, industry wise, whatever. Do these trends? What do you think of these as being trends for spotting qualified leads? All right. Well, I think that's all I have left. I appreciate everyone joining. I hope this was valuable. This was the first one. I'm kind of was pleasantly surprised by the amount of interest in this. The goal here is just to kind of do a live walkthrough of stuff and see and answer people's questions and hopefully provide some value. I mentioned before that if you'd like to work together, feel free to reach out to me. I've got my email in the chat there. Feel free to also hit me up on LinkedIn if you'd like. There are two more of these that I've got scheduled, the 24th and the 13th, around doing prospect routing, and then also a deep dive in the scoring categories. There is one on the 8th, looking at B2B marketing analytics and using it to monitor Pardot database churn. I'm going to schedule a few more this year that are live workshops. So keep an eye out for that. Join the community group. Justin, yeah, that's funny. But yeah, thank you so much for joining, everybody, and keep a lookout. Thanks everybody for joining. Yes, I am in Tampa. Thanks everybody. Yeah, so have a good rest of your day, and look for the recording.